Welcome to The Buzz. We're going to have some fun, hear things you'll never hear anywhere else, and learn how to take 1 hour off your marathon PR. That may be an exaggeration, but I am Buzz Burrell, and we're going to have real conversations with the people who help define this amazing sport of running, which often feels like more than just a sport. So send me your questions and comments to buzz@ultrasignup.com so we can do this together. This is a production of Ultra Sign Up. Thank you for joining me. Arc'teryx is the revered manufacturer of mountain clothing and is continuing its big push into running shoes with the new Nivalis, a shoe especially for winter. The Norvan 4 Nivalis has a full Gore-Tex cover and ankle gaiter. There are other Gore-Tex shoes on the market, but if the laces and tongue are showing, water just enters through those openings. The full Gore-Tex cover is the only way to keep your feet dry and warm. The Nivalis is the winter version of the successful Norvan with a Vibram light base outsole and deep 6mm lugs. It's great for running or hiking, and it looks as good as it performs. Our series with really fast runners is continuing. Last episode, we talked with Molly Seidel, bronze medalist at the Tokyo Olympic Marathon. And a hot tip, next episode is going to be with Ryan Hall, who for 5 years was America's fastest marathoner. But today, we are going to hear from the only athlete to win all the Ultra World Championship distances and the only athlete to win both Comrades in South Africa and the Spartathlon in Greece, and is a woman who has won at least 2 ultra races outright. Who else could I be speaking with but Camille Herron? Welcome, Camille.
Thank you so much, Buzz. It's really an honor to speak with you. You're a legend in the sport long before I got into it, so thank you very much for inviting me.
Well, you're welcome. Yeah, legends just mean I haven't died yet. I probably did something,
You're still going.
but you know, no one can remember what it was because it was so long ago. But you are a legend in the making. We have a lot to talk about here. You've had an extraordinary success with your career, and we're going to get into that because hopefully that other people can learn from how you have achieved this success. And it's been a complicated career because while you've been one of the best, it always hasn't been smooth sailing, if we could say so. You know, a few things have followed you around. We're going to get into all of that. But first, your list, I just read off 3 things, but I could go for 10 minutes. You have been unquestionably one of the best ultra runners in the world since 2015. Camille, I mean, besides the numbers, what does that look like to you? I mean, what would you say about this?
That seems like a loaded question to ask. You know, before I even got into the sport, I had already had a really long career because I had been a marathoner for I don't even know how many years, like 8 years before I even really committed to ultra running. So I had already done a lot in my career, and in 2014, I was at the point where I had already made 3 Olympic marathon trials. I was working full time, and I kind of said, well, you know what? I could retire right now, and I could say I had a pretty good career. I got the most out of myself. I ran personal best from 400 meters up to the marathon. So I thought I had a great career. I was thinking about retiring, and I kind of just said, you know what? I'm going to give this ultra running thing another shot because my first 2 attempts, I'd run 2 Oceans in 2013, I'd run Comrades in 2014, and I had some stomach issues at that race that really took me out. So I was kind of at the point where, well, you know what? Let's go further and let's see how it goes. And
Camille,
so
that's amazing. just pausing here. You were thinking of just retiring, calling it good. Now
yeah,
everybody knows you as an ultra runner. So
yeah, it's so weird.
what a restart. You had a very successful restart.
Yeah. So I think like just recommitting myself and going further. I ran the Mad City 100K in 2015, and yeah, I mean I was working full time. I was driving to work on a Monday, and I got a call from the race director telling me, hey, you broke a record by Ann Trayson. And my only recollection of Ann Trayson was that I had read about her in Born to Run back in like 2009, but I didn't really know what she had achieved in her career. So I had to literally get to work, get on Google, and do a search on Ann Trayson because I didn't realize like what I had done. I wasn't even trying to, I was just out there when I ran that race saying, hey, I'm going to stick to about 80% of max heart rate and I'm going to see how long I can hold that. And so I didn't know I had done anything, but like people were kind of chattering on Facebook saying, oh my gosh, you ran really, really fast. But I didn't have any concept of what that meant until the race director was really excited and told me, hey, you broke a record by Ann Trayson. So, I mean, that was the start. That was the start of, okay,
That's a
maybe,
That's a
yeah.
solid start because Queen Anne, of course, still has some records. I mean, some every once in a while, another one gets taken, after 30 years. Oh, well done, Camille. Let's just look at this a little bit more. So at the Jackpot 100 a couple years ago, you ran 100 miles in 12 hours, 41 minutes, a road world record. But that's a 7:37 mile. I mean, pardon me, but a 7:37 mile is really fast. So would it be fair to say that you have sort of kept your marathon and half marathon and 10-mile speed and just kept going longer and longer because you kind of came up from the faster paces and just kept the distance and added on to the distance?
Yeah, I remember back in 2015 that somebody had analyzed the paces of I guess like marathon paces for the top 100K runners at the World Championship versus their paces for 100K. And so I had something like the second closest gap between my marathon pace and my 100K pace. I think it was within my marathon pace. I run 2:37 was like 6 minute pace, or actually I think it's like 5:59. And then my 100K pace was like six for that the it was like 6:54 per mile. So I only had a gap of plus 54 seconds, and they had like somebody had analyzed like basically saying that I don't drop off as much as most people do. And so I have very unique traits about my physiology that make me well suited for ultra running. And so it's just been, like you said, about 100 miles. I mean, when I set that record, the first time I set it was in 2017. That I mean, I took over an hour off of what Gina Slaby had run at that time, and I mean, it just seemed that the further I went, the better I did, and I mean, it just kind of blew my mind, it blew other people's minds, and I mean, it just showed what was possible for women. Really, at that time, I mean, 2017 was a really cool time because I think Courtney had done some amazing things. She'd run the Moab 240. I ran the 100-mile world record, and I mean, just things just really opened up, and I feel blessed that I have that ability. I feel blessed that I even tried ultra running because I could have called it a career after running marathons for so long. So
Wow,
yeah, here.
that's a great story. Let's put a finer point on this because in your bio, I could have also have noted that you have a master's degree in exercise and sports science from Oregon State University. You did
Yeah.
research on the optimal anabolic stimulus for musculoskeletal health. And I think, you know this more than I do, but apparently you concluded that it was very important to keep the light mechanical stress going with high intensity. So I think, and again, we're here to learn, Camille, you might
Yes.
not do as much miles per week as some people do, but you like to keep the pace up. Is that a generalization?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm glad you brought that up because I love talking about the science. It's really fun for me. When I first got into the sport, everybody's like, oh, you have to extend your long run. You have to do like back to back long runs. And so, yeah, I mean, at the beginning of my career back in like 2013, 2014, I was trying to do like 30 something miles for my long runs. I was really trying to jump up my volume. And what I found was it just made me feel tired. Like it just seemed like I lost the zip in my step. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to go back to straight up marathon training in 2015. have that speed that I'm used to. I it was kind of more of a science experiment to me that I'm gonna do marathon training for ultra running and see what happens. And that was when I started to get the zip back in my step, and I wasn't feeling as tired as I was trying to do these like long runs. And it worked. It worked really, really well. And so I said, you know what? Don't, change the wheel. Like it's, stick with what works. And yeah, I mean, that's really been that was my philosophy for most of my ultra running career. And now that I'm in my 40s, I've had to like be a little bit more kinder to my body because yeah, I mean, doing all these long runs has really, it's still as tiresome, getting older, and I've had to kind of rethink my training a bit and evolve with where my body is. So.
Yeah, getting old is no joke. Uh, I appreciate that. And so just to continue, would this be called the so-called Norwegian threshold, where you're doing a lot of almost coming up your VO2 max, almost coming up to your lactic acid threshold, but stopping right there, but doing it very careful and very measured? Would that be a fair
Yes.
thing to say?
Yeah, yeah. I remember very specifically when I started working after I'd gone to grad school. I was sitting in a symposium while I worked at Purdue with some of the experts on the mechanics of bone health and trying to improve bone mass and that sort of thing. And I remember them talking about the short, frequent bouts of mechanical stress, that it was more anabolic to split the stress up into short, frequent bouts with about a 4 to 8 period of recovery in between. And so me being the runner, I'm like digesting what they're talking about, thinking, oh, well, that's like how I train. Like I do twice a day training most days. And I have like a recovery period between my training bouts. And so what they were saying about bone health, like just reinforced the way that I was training, the thoughts and ideas that I had absorbed from doing my master's thesis. And so, yeah, I wouldn't say I'm super familiar with the Norwegian way of training, but I've heard about them doing like kind of like that same sort of like back to back, like short, frequent bouts of high intensity. And I think it's really the thing to emphasize here is the frequency of training. I'm training like 11 to 13 times per week.
Wow.
So I'm not necessarily doing like a 20-mile run on a Saturday and a 30-mile run on a Sunday. I'm splitting that training. I might be doing 40 to 50 miles on the weekend on Saturday and Sunday, but I'm splitting it up into 4 bouts rather than into 2 bouts. And I've done it that way for years. And I mean, just knowing what I know about bone health and muscle health and the concepts of splitting the stress up has a much greater advantage in terms of the anabolic stimulus. So.
Interesting. Wow. Well, just to wrap up this training aspect, Camille, what round number would you estimate? If you're coming up to a 100-mile race, that's your goal, 4 to 8 weeks out, what's your per week average mileage? Just roughly.
Yeah, I mean, I feel pretty good keeping between about 100 to 130 miles per week. I've gone higher in the past. I've gone up to just under maybe 150 miles per week, but I don't train like that anymore. In fact, even as I've gotten older, I've kind of kept it more around like 100 to 110 miles per week. And I mean, that works for me. That might not work for somebody else. So, I think it's really important to have a coach that works with the individual. And but yeah, I mean, I've kind of like I'm a scientist. I'm somebody that works that troubleshoots and experiments, and I work with different volumes and intensities. And so I just stick with what works, and then I've kind of just evolved with age and like what I'm feeling with my energy level, and finding that, well, maybe I don't need to do so many long runs anymore, that, if I cut back on that's cutting back on stress. And that's really helped my energy level. It's helped my body to be healthier. I physically feel better now than I did like 5 to 10 years ago. So whatever I'm doing seems to be working, and yeah, I've got to stick with it. So.
Indeed. Well, and if you came out with a line of miracle supplements, I'm sure everyone would buy them.
there's there's no secret. There's no secret. I mean, you just gotta
Dang.
I work with a dietitian, I work with doctors. I mean, I have a whole team of people that have really helped me to dial in my formula, and I mean, I think there's like a really good quote. I'll have to post it on my Instagram, but really that there's no secret to training but to get off your ass.
Well, right, right. That's certainly true. And people talk about, various aspects. I like that. I like that. Training is still, you got to do it. There is no other, secret. There's just like you can go into CRISPR, they've identified endurance genes. There's no way to inject that gene into a muscle and have it perform better. That has not happened yet.
You just gotta put in the work. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Training, part one. Let's go to part two of helping out our listeners and me, hopefully, with some of your techniques. Well, you're out there for 100 miles or 100K. Some at the further project with Lululemon, you're out there for 6 days. What are you eating and drinking? I mean, we got to ask the dumb, irritating questions, don't we?
Yeah, yeah. I feel like up to about 24 hours, I can pretty much get by on gels and water and then just replace that with other things as I feel like I need to. Even when I did Spartathlon, I think I was doing mostly gels, and my dietitian had me doing something. I was doing like honey sandwiches with like salt on them or something, like little squares. So it was like alternating like gels and honey sandwiches, which gave me like maybe 1 or 2 grams of protein per hour as well. Um, but yeah, I mean, and then I sometimes switch in things like Morton or have soda or have beer or Coca-Cola. Sometimes I throw in some whiskey or something, kind of like out there. But I feel like when you get into the multi-days, you kind of have to get more into, you got to eat whole food because it's just not possible to sustain yourself for 6 days on gels. I can't even comprehend that.
Oh, right,
So,
right. And as soon as you say that, everyone's kind of going, "Oh,
that sounds
that's
terrible.
just the thought. Just the thought. We're kind of going, oh." But you're sustaining yourself on gels for that length of time. So it's just basic. You mentioned Morton's, which, has their bicarbonate added in that odd gel formula, but
Yeah, I
nothing
don't like that.
particularly tricky. You're going for carbohydrates.
Yeah, like I've kind of found that like I can tolerate like people are really pushing the high carbs, like the 90 or even more grams of carbohydrates per hour. And what I found going through my career is that I felt better cutting back on my carbohydrate intake the further the distance. And so I could tolerate maybe about 60 to 75 grams per hour up to maybe about 100K or 100 miles. But when I start going for beyond 100 miles, I find I gotta cut it back to about 50 to 60 grams per hour, maybe even less, like, going into the multi-days. And when I was part of the Further project, they did testing in the lab, and I mean, they had our whole group, and they had a couple women that are, professional level, and, my fat oxidation is ridiculous. I mean, it was just an outlier, and so and we actually did this testing like I think it was like the month before I ran Spartathlon in 2023. So they showed me the graph showing how like I can maintain a higher fat oxidation at a faster pace than even top level marathoners and top level ultra runners. I mean, I'm just an outlier physiologically. And we know that from the lab testing. So when I ran Spartathlon the following month, I ended up cutting back my carbohydrate intake to about closer to about 50 grams per hour. And it was life changing, like tapping more into my natural physiology, which I'm a better fat metabolizer than most people, even the top elite ultra runners. It made a difference, huge,
Well,
huge difference.
well, Camille, you're ingesting at that point 200 calories an hour. If it's 50 grams, 4 calories per gram, and you're burning more than that. And you're going for more than a day. And
Yeah.
pardon me, but you're not a chubby person. So, I mean, I appreciate fat metabolism, but it's coming from somewhere. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think they look at fat metabolism or not fat metabolism, they look at body I think they looked at body composition. I've had that tested as well over the years, and, I think I'm, like, maybe, like, 12.5%, like, when I'm really fit, sometimes I might be 15 to 16% if I'm, less fit, but, I mean, I'm, like, pretty I guess you could say I'm pretty average compared to, like, other elite marathoners, but I obviously have more fat than men, and so, I mean, there's, like and that's something that's really interesting to think about is, maybe, like, this push for high carbohydrate intake is something that better benefits men, than it does women because women have more fat, and so, I mean, there just really needs to be a greater push for sports science focused on women and figuring out, like, kind of what the average is, but like I also mentioned, there's individual variations between people. I mean, there might be women that can tolerate high carbohydrate intake, but I really kind of had to ignore the noise of, this push for high carb intake and really just tap into what I feel and what was validated from the science lab. So,
Well, it has been validated with the numbers. That's really well, thanks for explaining that. Because
yeah.
again, you're looking at the paces you're running at. You're not out there jogging. So you can do fat conversion at a fairly low output. I mean, it doesn't feel like it. You can go for a month. If a person has a fair amount of fat on their body, they can go for a month without eating. It feels terrible, but it can be done, but not at a 737 pace. So it's interesting that the lab indicated that you are really good at that.
Yeah, yeah, it was really interesting to see the graphs and how that matches up to others that they've tested. And I think like my optimum like 24-hour pace is something like an 8 minute per mile, like low 8 minute per mile. So I still have room to improve for 24 hours, if I really get things optimized. I mean, I definitely think I have a lot of room to improve like 24 hours and beyond and even like 100 miles. I mean, I still think I've got a lot of room there. But yeah, I mean, it's you don't know until you try and I'm 43 and I've been really inspired by what the women have been doing the past year. I mean, like the world records continue to improve and women are older than me. I mean, I'm 43, about to turn 44, and these women are 45 to 50 years old. And I think that there's something to be said about, if you don't give up on trying to be the best you can be at any age, that we're really redefining what's possible at any age. So that's really cool.
I definitely want to talk with you a little bit more about that. But my third question to help us out in terms of your success is Camille, what about the mental and emotional part of it? We talked about your training. We talked about, fueling and hydration. But I mean, how are you feeling about this? I mean, these are really long events. Are you entering the so-called pain cave? Or you out there just having fun? I mean, when I'm looking at pictures of you, your hair is flying back, you have this smile on your face, and occasionally, like you said, you drink a beer. So, but inside, how would you describe how you are getting through to run this far with this level of output?
Yeah, well, I think that's where the whole neurodivergence has really come into play. And yeah, I mean, I've always had the ability to hyper focus for long periods of time. I remember as a little girl, I used to play basketball in the driveway, and our dad had always told stories about playing at Oklahoma State, how they would practice for 6 hours without water. As a little girl, I'm absorbing these stories. Like, it's not that my parents are like pushing me to like, oh, I'm gonna deprive you of water. But I still had that ability to hyper focus as a young girl, to push myself to the point of I would basically push myself until I was blacking out in the driveway. It'd be like July and I'm like practicing without water for hours, like dribbling, shooting, and then I start blacking out and getting thirsty, and I would go inside and get some like pickles and a sandwich and some soup and a Coca-Cola, and then I'd be energized, and I'd be like, I feel like I can go play some more, so I go back out, and I keep practicing. So yeah, I mean, I think I always had the ability to push myself to the extreme like that, to be able to hyper focus, and I was already training my gut. I was already practicing as a girl, like for ultras, and so yeah, I think like I mean, just the things that the neurodivergence, the special qualities of my brain were already evident when I was a girl, and when I started running ultras, I started having mental flashbacks to those stories and those childhood memories, and that's kind of where I draw strength from, was just thinking about those memories, thinking about the stories that my dad told, and thinking that I had the same ability that my dad had to push himself. And so yeah, I mean, it wasn't really until I did the further 6-day event last year that I started realizing not only did I have like strengths and superpowers with my brain, but by like day 5, I started realizing like I'm feeling really overwhelmed and feeling like just the sensory, the people, the social aspects. It just felt like I started having like mental flashbacks to my childhood and remembering like how I felt like being overwhelmed in certain environments. And so it felt like my superpowers, my ability to hyper focus, to push through sleep deprivation. I've always been able to like get by on minimal sleep. I used to play video games all night when I was a girl. So I feel like I have both strengths and I have I have my own kind of weaknesses because my brain is different. And yeah, I mean, I think up to a certain point, like those strengths of my brain come out. And I mean, I was just the world records were, I think I was very, very strong up to a certain point until I started to feel like I was breaking down. And that hyper focus that I kind of had to like switch it off because I was too hyper focused to the point where I started having gut problems and my bowels and my bladder. I started having body issues because I was pushing myself to the point of like physical breakdown, and I was ignoring the signals in my body up to a point, and I finally had to like be like, okay, I'm hyper focusing too much. I need to tap into what my body's telling me, those pain signals, and take better care of myself so that I can continue on to reach more records. So
So you had to balance. You had to have introspection and balance out your what we could say is a natural proclivity towards ultra running.
yeah. And
I mean,
I don't feel pain. That was something else to mention. I don't feel pain like a normal person. And I had had a lot of stress fractures early in my career. I've had a lot of like mishaps. I've broken bones and didn't know I broke them. And I didn't understand how I'm able to do that. And I think now that I know that I'm autistic ADHD, it makes sense of like I have both hyposensitivities and hypersensitivities within my body and with pain. And that's also one of my superpowers and my strengths that has helped me for ultra running. But it only helps up to a certain point of you got to take care of your body the more days that you tack on. So
right, right. Well, you just mentioned it, and you have announced that you tested for autism and ADHD. You've kind of added this into your career, if I could say so. You've become an advocate for this, of what we sort of can call neurodivergent. And you just noted that in some cases, this really helps. I mean, you're focused, and you could actually run yourself into the ground unless you kind of backed up and tried to balance it out. And do you think that the same qualities, maybe in terms of communication and interaction, maybe have been less helpful in your life's path?
definitely, definitely. And I mean, that was one of the things when I went through the diagnosis was that my childhood, I was mostly nonverbal as a girl, and I had to take speech therapy until I was 9. So one of my autistic traits is my speech, my speech issues that I had as a young girl, and a lot of autistic kids, a lot of that grow up into adults don't develop the ability to communicate, or have difficulties with communication. And even as I speak with you now, that communication is difficult for me, especially when I'm under periods of stress, in races. I'm somebody that's so hyper focused that I'm not tuning into my body and my pain signals. I'm not necessarily communicating to my crew. I really pretty much I prefer to have monotropic focus when I run races and to not be as interrupted. And so I'm not super communicative when I race because I really do my best focusing. But like I mentioned, doing the further 6 day race, that it reached a point where I wasn't communicating and my crew had to like look at me and realize like, okay, she needs help. She's having bladder issues. She's having bowel issues. We need to help her. She needs to like pull the reins back and like take better care of her body. And so that was when the medical team suspected that I had a UTI infection, and so I had to go on an antibiotic during the race. And yeah, so yeah, I mean, I recognize that, communication, the social aspects are, they're difficult for me, and that was part of my diagnosis, and that was something I realized during the race, that there were times they literally had to shut out our
Wow.
team tent because there were too many people. It was too much like sensory overload in that environment that it was breaking me down. I just didn't feel well. I didn't feel well being in I've never felt well being in small enclosed spaces, and then surrounded by a lot of people and all the sensory overload of that. And so it was just the further 6 day event like took it to an extreme level.
Yeah, 6 days. Indeed. Well, that's Camille, thanks for helping everyone out on this. And I really like this aspect about, particular qualities can help an individual in some areas of life and hinder an individual in other areas of life. That makes perfect sense. That's kind of how it goes, particularly for people like you who are outstanding doing something. If you look at the presidents of the United States, for example, these all totally perfect, well integrated people? Probably not. Same with athletes, same with movie stars. And the first time I noticed something with you, and I communicated with you directly on this, was in the Ultra Runner of the Year awards a few years ago. And that you intentionally withdrew your name from consideration for Ultra Runner of the Year. And pardon me, I don't want to speak for you, but I think you said it was a little stressful for you to be a part of that. You just as soon not participate. And John Medinger, who organized it, said, "Oh gosh, we like Camille, wish she'd be a part of it, but if she doesn't want to be a part of it, well, that's her choice to make."
Yeah, I mean, I've as I've gotten older, I've learned to set boundaries and to remove myself from the things that I feel like just cause me more stress. Or remove the people, remove myself from things. So being able to set boundaries has been a healthy thing that I've learned to do for myself. And that actually came from when I started working with a mental health professional back in 2023. And he told me specifically, keep being a tall poppy, keep doing the same. I mean, I've tolerated certain things for years and being part of things, like having people in my life. And as I've gotten older, I've learned to set boundaries and to advocate for myself, advocate for other people. Why should we have to be part of things that don't serve us, that make us feel bad? I mean, yeah, it might upset other people that I'm kind of going against the grain. I'm not being part of the crowd, but I felt like it was the right decision for me. And I continue to feel that way, to feel that I need to set boundaries for myself that, help my health and wellness. And that's something I'm willing to, advocate to other people, and especially the younger athletes, that you don't have to be a people pleaser. You can do things that like make you feel better. And so yeah, I mean, that it really started in 2023 for me, just being able to set boundaries for myself.
Well, that's this. You've so many themes here we could get into. You mentioned women, of course, female, and being a people pleaser. And there is, if I may generalize, a certain streak that girls, if I may say so, tend to be more people pleasing oriented than boys. And then at some point, you're going to say, well, I want to be a nice person. I want to get along, but, I want to do what I want to do at the same time. And you sometimes females have to struggle to do that, while guys kind of get a free pass. Guys can be as aggressive as they want. Um, and ladies a little less so.
Yeah, and another thing to mention is I feel like the sport has grown so much that there's all these like votings at the end of the year. I in fact I've already mentioned it. I mentioned it to Jamil with Ultra Running Magazine that I mean I would like to see it diversify into having different categories, kind of like the way that USATF does with trail running and ultra running and the shorter mountain stuff. I mean, I'd rather see Ultra Running Magazine to better represent the diversity of ultra runners, and that we're not trying to group us all together is really, I mean, as much as the sport has grown, that I would just rather see more athletes recognized for their achievements and being more specialists. The athletes are becoming more specialized, and it's no longer just about like who's the top ultra runner. And so see, I mean that's how I feel about it. So and I've spoken out about this before about feeling that I feel like the Ultra Running Magazine needs to diversify. Even World Athletics used to have just one athlete, and they've diversified in I think last year was like one of the first years that they've done that they separated it into the different sporting categories to better recognize the diversity of athletes. And so, yeah, that's something I'm willing to advocate for. And yeah.
Right. Well, you have a point here, and I side-banded you a little message that at that time offering you my personal understanding of the situation. Just a personal comment here. But I am a voter on Ultra Running of the Year awards, as well as a few other awards. And there is probably subjectively, I can't say this statistically, that most people in America look to trails. I mean, just in the trail running community, they look to ultras. In the ultra running community, they look to trail ultras. And you're phenomenally successful on the road and track. You've won plenty of trail races, but that's not your forte. And so it could be said that you're kind of not getting all the credibility that you could because of your road and track orientation. I think that's actually a fair comment, but it's a subjective comment. We can't know.
Yeah, and it's so it's so funny to think about, because if you went to South Africa, they would have a completely different viewpoint. Or if you went to Japan, the same thing. I mean, there's different parts of the world where, it's kind of like road or trail or I don't know, like France. France seems to be like France has both good road ultra people and good trail people, so that's really pretty interesting. But yeah, I mean, I just think that the sport has grown so much that athletes are specializing more, and I would rather see like more athletes recognized for what they're good at. And it's not just about me. I think that there's so many more road ultra athletes now. I mean, just what happened this weekend at Tunnel Hill is kind of a unique course because it counts as both road and as trail. But yeah, I mean, there's just the sport has really grown, and I think that the Ultra Running Magazine voting should grow with it and evolve and recognize the specialty, the diversity of athletes. So
Right. Yep. Yep. There's road, track, trail, mountains, ultra. That's a
yeah.
big tent. It's a very big tent. Everyone's welcome. And well, Camille, this is a touchy one, so please pardon me, but in deference to our listeners, we have to talk about the complete package here. And so you were involved in this unfortunate Wikipedia controversy, which got a little bit of press and a little bit of notoriety. At the same time, there's nothing illegal ever took place. It was kind of a funky look. And just in short, a lot of edits, many edits have been made to Wikipedia pages, and kind of is traced back to your Connor's account. And it's like, on one hand, so this is what you're doing. And on another hand, maybe you don't feel that you were doing it. What's your take on all of this?
Yeah, so I just want to emphasize to people that I'm a sports whistleblower. And I've made many reports to USATF and the IAU, especially the past 2 years. And so there was a confidential incident that happened in 2023 that I reported somebody that the USATF validated my concerns with that report. And so I started having retaliation as a result, starting back in 2023 and going into 2024, dealing with a pattern of retaliation. And so I made additional reports in the summer of 2024. This is the first time I'm going to publicly share this, but it's the Global Organization of Multi-Day Ultra Runners held a 48-hour event in June of 2024, and this event wasn't sanctioned. The IU validated my first set of concerns in August of 2024, and thereafter I started to experience a smear campaign, specifically by the GOMU Vice President Victoria Brown, and I have all this stated in a timeline that I've sent to my legal counsel. The smear campaign that was happening in August of 2024, September of 2024. And so basically, in terms of the whole Wikipedia situation, that was a completely separate situation that had happened starting in September 2023 into I think it was like September of 2024. So that was a completely separate thing that was happening. And I had reported that to my sponsor, that situation. That was my husband's email account. That was his Wikipedia account. He came out with a public statement about all of that. But basically what happened was I'm a whistleblower, and it was like these individuals had gone on a modern day witch hunt because they were getting on Wikipedia and changing pages, and then they were trying to figure out how to, like, I guess, like, blow it up into this controversy. And the evidence that Canadian Running used was from, like, a public forum post from 2007 in which I had shared my husband's email address, the Tempo Run 73, with a classmate so that he could manage selling my car. And that was the evidence that they used to supposedly rope me into the whole Wikipedia thing.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, it really all started because I'm a sports whistleblower. They were trying to discredit me as a sports whistleblower and my sense of integrity. And I've been validated multiple times by going back to 2023's incident. And these individuals are connected with each other. They're
Gotcha.
friends. They're friends.
Well, I
Yeah.
think people really appreciate you taking following the rules. So you've done that with illegal drugs, by the
Yes.
way. I should point that out. You're a strong advocate for illegal performance enhancing advocate for enforcing the rules against performance enhancing drugs. And you said that there's a little smear campaign because you're a whistleblower. At the same time, the Canadian running journalist did pretty good research. And again,
Actually, it wasn't very good research. I want to
hmm,
interrupt you there. I mean, all this started in September of 2023, where there was a trail runner named Stephen Walling. If you get on Ultra Sign Up, you can look up Stephen Walling and his race history. But he was basically getting on Wikipedia. He's an administrator. He doesn't disclose on his talk page that
hmm,
he has a conflict of interest. He's a trail runner, but he was the one that started the dispute. He was getting on my Wikipedia page and removing well-sourced parts of my biography about my achievements, my family, my disabilities. And this is all public record as well. The edit
right.
histories are, so I've
Well,
gone through and researched all that. So yeah.
indeed. So there's a few. Someone could else listeners, if they want, can Google this. Go to your website. You have a lot of information on your website. Outside Magazine did an article on this. If they want to look into it further, they can do it. You and I aren't going to do it right here. And so I would like to also note that Connor, your husband, did say his Wikipedia editing was aimed at combating online bullies. It was kind of a defensive maneuver rather than a pro Camille maneuver, according to him, if you see what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I think, like, I mean, he was at that time, I mean, he was protecting me. He was protecting me against harassment on Wikipedia. He's had a long time account. The public edit the edit histories are public. You're supposed to comply with Wikipedia guidelines, and so he was always acting in good faith, according to their guidelines, which have to have accuracy, neutrality, sourcing. And so, I mean, he was always acting in good faith, but these administrators that he mentioned in his statement kind of just ganged up on him and started making accusations of wrongdoing, and that's just simply not true. He was always acting in good faith to defend me and what was happening on my page. And in terms of, editing other athlete pages, I mean, he was just referencing, because of these changes that were happening, he was reverting back the removals on my page. So to make these claims that he was adding positive and removing from others is simply not true. He was just reverting back what was being removed from my page and then referencing other athlete pages, because he was curious. Like, he was curious, is this happening on other athlete pages? And I mean, he just made a couple of minor changes that were just meant to ensure neutrality
Right.
on other athlete pages, but it was just all mischaracterized in what the media reported. And I mean, they didn't interview me, they didn't interview Connor, because the email from the journalist went to spam for both my personal account and also my business account. We didn't see it. We were in Greece, and I'm preparing for Spartathlon, and yeah, so I mean, it was just it just blows my mind that
It
this
it was a
happened.
mess. It was a
Yeah,
total mess.
yeah,
And I apologize, because no one wants to be at the center of a social media controversy.
no, and I gotta say, I mean, I have both Connor and I have such great respect for the athletes that were mentioned. The article had quote by Trishul Churns. It was a witch hunt to try and discredit me as a whistleblower, and I just really want to emphasize that to people, and that Connor and I really do have great respect for the athletes that were mentioned, and it was really just about acting in good faith and following the guidelines of Wikipedia, and that there was nothing being removed that was factually accurate from bios. That obviously that Wikipedia wants to ensure the accuracy of their content, and so if anything was removed, it was just because it was factually untrue.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
Camille, thank you for that clarification. And again,
Sure.
I'm sorry, because no one wants a social media controversy, and so
No,
sorry
I'm
that you were at a big race, and so the proverbial shit hit the fan while you're overseas at a race, which would be very harsh to experience. Ooh,
yeah.
wow. Well, so sorry about that. Thanks for the explanation. Again, anyone who wants to look into this, you can go various places. Personally, nothing illegal was ever accused of being done. So personally, it's like, let's move on, is my
I
my personal take on it.
I really appreciate that. I really want to move past this. I just want people to know that, I mean, my husband and I are both good people. We're people of integrity. I've been an advocate for the integrity of the sport for like my whole career. And my husband and I are people that follow rules and guidelines. We're not that we don't want to harm anybody. I'm like a kind person. I'm a good person. My husband's a wonderful person. And I mean, it was just really, this whole thing was retaliation to try and discredit me as a whistleblower. And
Gotcha.
I
Well,
remain
again, I'm
firm.
I'm sorry about that. I'm
I
so sorry
appreciate
about
that.
that, Camille. Indeed.
I appreciate that.
Um, and so as we move forward here, we're talking about your records and so forth, and you just mentioned, indeed, in the past few weeks, two of your records have been eclipsed. There's
I
Tara Dower at course record at Javelina, and then you mentioned at Tunnel Hill, Katriona Jennings, a new world 100-mile, a
it
record
was
you held for
amazing.
8 years. 8 years is kind of a long time. So
I think I don't even know. I think I had like 3 records broken actually because of my 48 our record as well. And then there's like another disputed record right now, but I tell you, it's such an incredible time to be in the sport, and I am so proud of other women going for it, stepping it up, putting in the work and saying, "You know what? I can do this too. I can go out there. I'm gonna go for records. I'm gonna shoot for the moon." And so I thought it was so cool what Tara did. I mean, I she was being paced by my friend Sierra, I think on like lap 4, and that I like looked at the race splits and I was just like, "Oh my gosh, this is like mind blowing what they're running." And I was inspired, and so I really I have such I just they're very inspiring to me, and Catriona, Jennings from Ireland, she's actually one of my longtime friends that we first met at the 50K World Championship back in 2015. I think she had made the Olympics in, was it 2020? That was 2015. So that was 2012. She made the Olympic team for Ireland. And it's so cool. We've been on this journey together with the ultra running, and yeah, I thought it was so cool that she was able to do what she did. I thought it was cool that she came all the way from Ireland to Tunnel Hill to go for it. So
Yeah,
yeah.
Ireland to Indiana. That's a good one. But you had that record for quite some time, and I really appreciate that you're enthusiastic about seeing other people getting after it. And you mentioned Catriona at the Olympics, so she came in with pace too.
Totally.
She's not an ultra jogger. She came in with the ability, to knock down sixes anytime she wanted. And so
Totally.
she just has to ease up and get some endurance. A little common theme in this conversation. But so now you, Camille, I mean, you're a master now. You're 43. You're 45 here in another month. Oh,
44. Yeah.
40, oops, sorry, 44. Sure, you're better arithmetic than I am. And so what does that mean to you? You're looking at these masters records, or how are you taking this?
I think I don't know, like, my husband and I think I texted him the other day and I said, "Is Camille 2.0 is about to come." I guess I don't even know which version I'm on right now because I feel like I've been in the sport for so long and I've been through so many different versions of myself. Um, but yeah, I mean, right now is really what's been happening the past year is really like evolutionary, like historical, and yeah, I mean, I'm at a completely different time in my life where I'm actually free of sponsors right now. I could like do whatever I want to do. I don't have to be forced to do certain races. I could specialize on the road stuff and continue to chase the world records and then maybe go back to trail running whenever I feel like it. I feel like I kind of have freedom to like, shape my career going forward. And now that I mentioned yesterday that iron sharpens iron. So
Oh,
what I did, 8 to 10 years ago, I didn't have that pressure. I didn't have that competition. I was just putting myself out there. And I'm somebody that likes competition. I like pressure. And I think it's really cool because now I've got to really refine myself and I can really like shape myself and my path going forward, and that I have that competitive pressure that, maybe I have to like hold off on the beer during the race because I can't afford to like lose a beer stop or lose time from a beer stop. I might cut back on like another 5 or 6 minutes to try and break that 100-mile world record again.
wow. Well, Camille, this is amazing. So you're just laughing your head off while you're talking like this. This is amazing. I'm just going to hit the pause button here to reflect, because you just said you are free of sponsors, which is
Yeah,
another way of saying you don't have a sponsor. So
yeah.
what some people would say is, oh man, I don't have a sponsor. I can't afford to do this. I'm under so much pressure. I don't know what I'm going to do. But you're
I
going, no, I'm free of sponsors. Free. So is this just an amazing sleight of hand of framing this in the positive, or in your voice, I hear that you're just feeling kind of happy about this.
Yeah, I mean, I have definitely had mixed feelings about it because I think about the beginning of my career when I was winning world titles in 2015. I didn't have major sponsors. I still had my marathon sponsor at that time, but I was working full time. I had a very stressful day job in research, and but I was still having success without all the other outside pressures that I had for most of my ultra running career. So I'm kind of thinking about like evolving my career, like going back to what I once knew, what worked for me. I had a very simple life back in 2015, that I had a very routine structure of going to work, breaking up my work day with a run at lunchtime and then a run in the evening time. And I'm trying to reflect it in a positive way of being like, okay, well, I've done this before without sponsors. I worked full time. I got the running done, put in the work. I won world titles, did amazing things. So why not go back to that? Um,
Right.
but,
Well,
but
again,
yeah,
I'm going to have to pause for further reflection because this
sure.
is dramatic. I've heard this a lot. There's people chase shoe sponsorships, particularly when they're starting. Now, you're not starting out, like you said, but it's sort of an external validation to some degree, because at least for most people, there's not much money in it. And you had Hoka for a while. Then you had Lululemon, and the Lululemon just quit the running space. And so now you feel you happy to continue, redefine yourself, whatever it may be. And
Yeah.
you're not chasing the sponsorship, I'm hearing.
Yeah, I'm kind of, I've had some opportunities that been presented to me, but I'm being very like careful and mindful that, I mean, I'm not saying that I'm like completely like done with sponsors, because I already kind of can see that, like, if I was going to have a sponsor again, like I might just have one sponsor or two sponsors. Like I'm just not going to have like a full gamut of sponsors again. But I'm also open to the possibility of leadership opportunity. I've had somebody that reached out to me earlier this year that was like, "Hey, like I want to present this to you. What do you think about this?" And that just kind of like blew my mind, because, it's cool to be like a sponsored athlete, but I think I'm at a different point in my career that I would be open to stepping into leadership opportunities if they presented themselves. But I also have a background in research, and I have very like good connections with professionally, and so I'm kind of thinking, like, oh, I can easily go back into the research world, but I also am open to the idea of leadership opportunities. I mean, I worked with Nike, Hoka, and Lululemon, like three major shoe brands. I've worked with their development teams and innovation teams. I mean, I've helped with like product development across three major brands. And I mean, who else has done that? I mean, I think that's kind of a cool thing. Um, and so yeah, I mean, I'm really open to like whatever happens and comes along, and yeah, I mean, for me it's more about like, how do I make the sport better for athletes? Like, how do I apply like what I've learned in my career to make the sport better, in whatever way. And yeah, I mean, I'm open to whatever, presents itself and those possibilities.
Well, Camille, that's a wonderful way to put it. Again, I just paused you twice just to let this sink in. You're happy, you're open to what might come next, and you're really open and enthusiastic. And you do have this broad background. Would there be any? This is after what you just said, this is sort of a dumb question, but I have to say it in case other people listening are thinking of it. Do you have any races in mind that you are pointing toward and training for? I feel like that's sort of a
Figures.
question I have to ask.
Yeah, yeah, I do. I'm signed up for a race in a couple weeks, but I'm kind of on the fence about doing it because I was presented another race opportunity that in January, and I don't want to share it yet because the race is going to announce it. But I'm definitely going to be chasing world records here in the coming year, in the coming months, and that makes me really excited because like now that I've got some competition, I got to really dial things in. But yeah, I mean, obviously, like you determine your race schedule every year, the first 6 months, and then kind of reassess. And I definitely have ideas. I've had so many people like be like, okay, I want you to come to this race and this race. I need to just really put it into a spreadsheet now, and because there's so many, I have to kind of plan out like almost like long term, like what do I want to do? And I would say my priority right now are the world records and trying to get back some that I lost here year recently. But then I don't want to rule out I really miss trail running. I really miss trail running. And it's just like, how do I fit in some trail running into my road running if that's possible? Or do I need to focus on one thing before I go back to trail running? So I don't know. Well, I'm really open to whatever happens next year.
Camille, I so much appreciate your attitude, your enthusiasm, and your vitality just oozes out of this conversation. Everyone listening to this is going, wow, she's got a lot of energy. She's got a lot of juice. I can see why she's been so successful. And if you ever come out with that line of special sauce supplements, I'll buy a bottle.
There's no supplements to it.
Oh, dang. Okay. All right.
Tacos. I actually, I did a podcast yesterday. I was wearing my I Love Tacos hat. So today I got my Hi Mom hat on. So hi to my mom.
Camille, thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Yeah, thank
And
you
I'm
so
really,
much.
really happy that we're going to hear more about Camille Herron in the next year.
Always, there's more to come.
Thank you for joining me. I feel like I'm with all my friends. This is Buzz Burrell, and I'll be back 2 weeks from today, delivering more thoughts you've probably never heard before. This podcast is a production of Ultra Sign Up and releases every other Tuesday, alternating with The Trailhead with Zoe Rome and Brendan Leonard. If you've enjoyed this, please subscribe and click that button that says 5 stars, because that helps other people find this.